Hello, everybody. So today I'm thrilled to welcome the presentation skill coach and author Fern Chan to the Authors on Missions show. Fern is an author of How to Not Suck at Presentations, really great title. Uh, with humor and easily applicable tips, Fern guides readers through transforming from indistinguishable to instant standout presenters. She shares an unforgettable formula for connecting with audiences, making messages memorable, and overcoming death by PowerPoint. Fern draws from her experience keynoting at the United Nations and coaching over 200 clients on leveling up their presentation abilities. Listeners can expect practical takeaways to stop losing listeners and start creating raving fans whether they're present in person or virtually. We'll also discuss about her author journey, like what was her process of writing the book, and then how exactly did she get the book cover design, which is lovely, and then also how did it publish, then the marketing, how she's using the book to grow her business. We'll discuss the entire journey right today. Thank you so much, Fern, for joining in today.
Vikrant, thank you for that amazing introduction. I'm kind of so flattered and honored to be on your show. So thank you for having me.
Great. I'm really excited for this talk. So I noticed on your website that you have a course and a coaching program as well. Did you write the book first and then build the course and coaching, or is the other way around?
I did actually. So I wrote the book first. This was at the height of the pandemic. I was stuck at home, a lot of Zoom calls. and suffering through like a lot of people, right? It's like everybody was turning into zombies. And I did a lot of presentations before in person and online, and I just thought there got to be a better way.
Yeah.
This might take a while before we come back into in-person events, but I'm like, there has to be a better way for us to get our message across so that we don't lose people along the way. Because what I found was people have a lot of value, a lot of knowledge, a lot of genius they can share. It's just that in that execution, they give so much, they overwhelm, and then nobody remembers anything the moment you stop talking. And that is such a shame. It's like, oh my God, if I spent all that effort to share my knowledge with you, and then it just you don't remember anything. I've just wasted your time, my time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Right? I mean, that's the biggest shame, right? I would just feel like I would not want that to happen to me. I would not happen to you. That, that's like you have genius, you have value to share with the world. So let's make sure we get it out there and make sure that that message sticks.
Got it. So what were you doing before pandemic?
So I was working in higher education. So I do a lot of professional development training, a lot of crisis communication training with law enforcement officers. So one of the things that I did was train them to what we call de-escalate, right? How do we get them to communicate with other people so that they would not have to reach for their weapon? So we have a saying that says talk down before the takedown, right? So how can I teach you to use your communication skills before you have to use any other weapon on your tool belt? So for me, I had to make sure that my lesson would stick. How I'm going to get you, because I'm not a cop, right? But I'm going to get the trust of these law enforcement officers. And I work in New York, so I'm talking about New York City NYPD officers here who are very perhaps a little bit more, have a bit more bravado because they have to deal with so much. Respect to people who work in this field, by the way. So it's like, well, how am I going to help you to do your job so that everybody gets home safe, right? So for me, that was more than just getting my message stick, because to some level, lives are at stake. Because if I can get you to communicate with the person who's in distress because they might be threatening to harm themselves or somebody else, and you get them to put down that knife so that everybody gets home safe, then guess what? I want you to be able to listen and use the skills that I'm teaching you. So a lot of it came from the work that I was doing that then, brought me to the United Nations and all these other places. But at the core of it, it's like, how can I help solve a problem for you? And that's why I wrote the book, right? The journey is like, how do I help somebody become a better presenter so that their ideas and their messages cuts through all of that, through all the techniques that I was sharing, so that it becomes a message that's memorable, it's dynamic, and people remember you. They might not remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel, right? I'm quoting Maya Angelou here, but that's how people remember. It's like, people don't remember boring. So if you're boring and it's like, 20 bullet points in on the first slide, you're like, oh boy. don't do that to your audience, right? It's overwhelmed, and then people don't remember anything when they're overwhelmed. But if you tease it out a little bit, you share a little, like, you know what? Do you want to know how I can get you to, do you want to know how I can stop somebody from screaming and yelling at you and get them to buy into your suggestion? Would you like to know how to come away cool as a cucumber so you know what to say? People, yeah, I want to know. Right? Yes. So I think that's how I came about with, like, you know, the ideas that I had is like, this book that I wrote has to be a way to solve a problem. And that's how I teach. And that's how I believe in anything that you do, right? It's like, why would people want this information? Because there's something that they're stuck at. Right. So whether it's like I'm stuck at, you know, because I really suck at presentation, or like I'm really afraid of public speaking, or I you know, I don't know how to format my information. But most people don't think about it. They sort of watch somebody do a presentation, or they've seen it with their lecturers or whoever they've seen, and it's just boring bullet points after bullet points after bullet points, right? And then they think, oh, this is how I do it, and they copy a really bad example, and then it's just like a vicious cycle, and then they start to treat like a teleprompter. Have we all seen those slides that have like bullet points of just lines and lines? And then the presenters like read line from line. Oh, that is like rescue me, bad signal, somebody. So that was the impetus for me to write the book. So I first wrote the book, and then I thought, oh, this could be, what's the next level, right? It's one thing to read, but I don't know what kind of learner you are, but some people like to see things in action. Yeah. So the book then lent itself to being able to transform itself into a digital course. So every chapter I sort of tackle like a specific topic. So it's like, okay, well, I can tease this out into a module. And again, putting on my educator hat, because I have that background, how do I then transform each chapter into a module of which I can, you know, make it into a course, but then show them, right? Because there's some things that I can't show in a book. Like, this is where you click this button when you want to upload these things. Yeah. Because so much of presentations too, sometimes people share the screen, and we all know what happens when we share a screen in Zoom. Poof, your panel goes away. It's like, oh, where's you know, you're looking for buttons, you're freaking out, and then you're like, oh, where did my comment section go? So all of those sort of things that I include in the video, which is hard to describe in the book, but then you get to do like technical walkthroughs and show people, right? So some people are more visual learners, so this way they can walk through it. So that's a very powerful thing to do. So I did the book, which then I took up to the next level, which is a digital course. And then after that, I built my coaching practice on that, because that makes total sense. Some people need a little bit more hand-holding, because how many of us buy courses and then don't finish? Yeah. Oh my, I am the queen. I will admit, right? I was like, oh my God, I have all the time in the world to learn. And that's great, right? That's why we do these things, because we want to give people the freedom to do it. But it's like, oh, I spent all this money, I didn't do it. Listen, it's okay to put yourself up. That's why we do like a coaching program. That's why I offer the group coaching. Now let me walk you through this so you actually do the work. I provide you the safe space. We will put this in action. And at the end of the 6-week program, you will have done the work. You will have created your keynote presentation, whatever it is. You would have put these things into practice, right? Because it's like, you can do feedback. Because I know myself too. It's like, oh, I can sign up. It's like, oh, unless somebody holds my feet accountable to the fire, show up on this day. Here's your assigned homework. You're going to do these things. It's like, okay, other people are depending on me. It's like going to the gym, right? Yeah. Like, going by yourself, not so much. Other people showing up, trainer looking at you, do the reps. I'm there.
So you had no idea that you would be creating courses and coaching after, like, when you were writing the book, or where you have these things in mind that the next step is the coaching and the courses?
So I had it more like as a side hustle, right? For me, I was still in my full-time 9-to-5 job. And I'm like, oh, this is just a book I write, to be able to say I wrote a book. So I think that's one of the most powerful things, to be able to say I wrote a book. Yeah. Right. Okay. I mean, that's like legacy to have something published out there in the world, even if it's your mom buying it, right? You can say, hey, you can go to Amazon and find my book. It's there for sale. It has an ISBN code. It's like, you know, all the sort of nerdy things that you could say. You can find this book on the shelf at, you know, all these bookstores. So that for me was like, that would be amazing to have something, right? I think a lot of people say, like, if I could write a book, all of us have a book in us. It just has to be like, well, whether it's fiction or nonfiction or whatever it is, you know, share a part of yourself. It's like, legacy building. So so for me, it was like, okay, it's great. It gives me some authority. I can use it as like a business card. But then it morphed into something more. It's like, oh, I could do more than this. Because then people would say, Fern, I love the book. How can I learn more? I'm like, oh, and I didn't have the time, right? Because I still had my full-time job. I'm like, you know what? Let me create this course, and then I will put it out there so you can then, learn at this other form. And then, when it got to the point, I was like, you know what? I think I can go all in on my business now. So I left my job just this June.
Great, great.
I'm all in on my business, right? So it went from book to digital course to group coaching. And then I'm going to next year launch some, high ticket one-on-one coaching where it's like, hey, how can I get you to that point where you are up there being the badass on stage? And so it's a journey, but I embrace it. And actually, I'm actually running a boot camp to help people do the same thing. So if you have an idea and you want to turn it into income, let me help you just using the same process I did, right? Creating like an ebook of which you can turn into your course. Then you have digital assets out there that you can put on autopilot and start selling, and then make money while you're sleeping. That's the goal, right? Having that means of having a passive income. If you want to do this, if you still have a full-time job, or if you're branching out and you're thinking about going into entrepreneurship. So there's so many things that you can do. And I think just having a book would be so helpful, but then converting that book into a course, also very helpful. But I will have a caveat on that. Would be much easier if it's like a self-help book and not a fiction book, because it's hard to like figure that out. So this only works for those sort of self-help, how do I solve a problem type book.
Yeah, right. And how do you price the different levels of programs you have? Like the book, of course. What's the price on that? And then the course and the coaching program, and then you're gonna be having a one-on-one high ticket. So
for sure. So I think you have to look at the market, right? To not price yourself out of the market, because then other people are gonna be like, okay, well, what makes your book so special that you're charging $99 when it's not that thick a book? It's only, so if you're gonna sell on any bookseller's place, I would say look at the niche in your market and sort of see what books go for. Right? If you're selling a hardcover, most hardcovers are selling at $27.99. I'm talking US dollars here. So a hardcover, $27.99, right? That's about the going rate. Paperback could be about $15, $12, depending on what it is. I price my book, it's now probably at $20. It's not a thick book, but I printed it in color. So I added that extra premium that I can charge more for something that probably would be a lot less. But don't forget, if you're printing in color, your price of printing goes up too, right? So that's one way to look at it, but also look at it in terms of, I use it like a business card. So even if I had the ebook at $2.99, sometimes if you're a Kindle subscriber, you get it for free, and it's okay because you build in other ways because you're just trying to get a wider reach, and there's definitely other ways to promote your book. But think about the intent of what you want this book to do for you. Is it like a lead magnet for you to just get people into your world, for them to get to know you? And this is also how you can build authority. If you have a published book, you can say, I'm a published author, right? Now, there's a lot more involved in getting the book out there. It's one thing writing the book, but then you get to the world of book publishing, you're like, oh my God, there's a lot more involved on the back end. And some people just choose to do an ebook and not worry about putting it out there. It's like, I'm just going to sell it on my own site. You can absolutely do that too, right? But then you might not get the bragging rights of being a published author, that you can sell it on Amazon as an actual book listing.
Yeah. And what about the pricing, the courses and the coaching program and one-on-one?
So I would say multiply it by 10, right? Or more. So if what you're providing is of value here, so this is like creating a value ladder. I think many people in the marketing world, if you're familiar with the works of Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, all these sort of people all have what they call a value ladder. So your entry point will be, say, your book. So let's say you're charging your book for $20, right? The next thing you should think of is like, well, the next thing I'm going to offer, which is a course, even though it's, standalone, you can do it in your own time, you still have to take time to create it, right? So I say multiply that by 10, charge $200. You just put it out there, because now it's like, oh, now you get to see video. Now you get to do other things that are, more sensory. So how do you package up that value in a sense that then, hey, you can do this. And then again, same thing with the next level up, right? Multiply it by another 10. So if the digital course is 200, then guess what? My group coaching program is 2,000. But you need to add that value for every step. What is the value add that then people will feel justified paying that 10 times more than before? Because when you get a lot more from my $2,000 program than my $20 book, but you also don't want to turn people away who can't afford that, right? So it's like, you know what? It's not for everyone, and it's okay that you're not there yet. But guess what? You can take my course for $200. You're not there yet. It's okay. You can pick up my book for 20, right? So you give people options. So when they're ready, they can go up the ladder with you or come down. And that's how, you can build it up, right? But always make sure that when you're increasing the price, what is the value add that you're throwing in there? Is it, you also have to think about terms of access for me, right? The book you can read, perfect.
Yeah.
The digital course, you see me doing some stuff, great, sort of like evergreen content. The coaching program, where it's like 10 times more than the digital program, you're working with me in a group, but I'm giving you feedback. You want my time one-on-one? $20,000. Let's go, baby. So again, right, it's the, how do you limit that access so that you can build the value where it's like, oh, I don't want to share my time with her. I want to, build, do more things where it's more exclusive. Then you have the authority to be able to say, okay, well, it's like a retainer, right? And believe it or not, people who pay that much don't bother you as much because they're like, I only need it for when I need it, but I want to have the access to you on call. So that's just how, I've structured my business in that sense. So, and it starts out with a book.
Got it.
Or
Yeah.
that's the reverse too, right? I mean, I think there are other entrepreneurs and coaches out there who had thought about doing these other things. They might be doing a lot of consulting. Then how do you build these other assets that can then help bring other people into your world? So it's part of like your ecosystem.
So actually, 80% of the clients that we have worked with, they do the other way around. Like they already have the coaching program or a video course or a high ticket one-on-one. And then they write a book so that they can actually use it as a business card and then turn those readers into their clients. We've also got some clients like this, but very few clients like you, like who start their entire journey from the book, right? So they go step by step. But of course, that's also really great because you know the nitty gritty. Like you have writing a book. Like, what do you think? How different it is to write a book and then creating a course? Like, what's the difference you have seen and experienced?
Yeah, you know what? Editing, I think is part of it because, like I said, I came from the world of education, higher education. So I was, doing curriculum development, producing courses and all this sort of stuff. It's very different from when you have to write this. Like, how can I explain this in words that also make sense to a reader, right? That will keep them wanting to read the book. So I think you have to, turn it the other way around too. And also, like again, some things don't translate on paper as well. Like, technical things that, this is better. It's just easier if I show you. Right? And it takes so long to explain on a page. So how can we, tease that out into a medium that works on paper better than on video or anything else, right? So I think that's a different process, but also there has to be a discipline to it. Writing takes discipline, right? Sometimes words fail you. So when I wrote the book, there was no chat GPT. That everything came from like my brain. And then it, like it takes a few drafts. It takes a while for you to get into the rhythm of what you want to say. And some people are not so good at writing, but they can speak it. So, if you're a better person that you just record your thoughts, record it, have it transcribed. So this way you can look at your words and go, oh, this is what I mean. And you can tease it out, right? Because sometimes we just need to have some ideas for us to like, do it. I would say get into a practice. You have to dedicate that time. That's just you time where you sort of think, where your mind is at its optimum. Yeah, I try to do it before the kids wake up, where I have to make this, pack their lunches for school and that sort of stuff. So like, when is that quiet time that I can do this dedicated time of writing where I can pull my thoughts? Now, if you've already created the course, then it's easy. Look at your syllabus, right? Look at your modules, and how can I use these modules and break it into chapters? That I can then, tell little stories about, anecdotes to make it a bit more alive, that, will make the reader want to still read. Here's the thing. Why do people read books? Right? People want to escape a little bit. They want to be entertained, right? Why? I mean, I love reading a good murder mystery. Oh, give me Agatha Christie anytime. Right? But it's like a good whodunit, because you want it. So you, even though if it's a self-help book, you need to write it in a way that's like going to keep the reader interested. So I can infuse some of these things that make a reader want to read a book. Right? So I think it's important to always remember, like, what's the audience experience? Ask yourself, why do I read a book? Right? I'm trying to find answers, or I'm trying to be entertained, or like, oh God, I just want to know what this person's life was like, because I want to know how he became the rags to riches story. Those are all like, people want to see themselves in the story, right? So how
Sure.
can you write a story in that way too, to make your content appeal to your reader, using some of these tactics as to why people read books?
Yeah. How much time, do you remember how much time it took you to write this book? Like how many months?
So I started the process in, say, March, when I decided to put it together, and I self-published by October. So I like to say this was like a child. With plenty of labor pains along the way. It was, it's not just writing. And when you're writing, especially if you're going to self-publish or use a service like yours, you have to separate yourself a little bit and get an editor, right? And make sure that you have a third party looking at it who's not so attached to your work. If you want a book to really sell and stand out, hire a designer to design your cover. Don't be cheap on certain things. I said, like, you want it to be professional, make sure it's something that's like, hey, this needs to look like I just didn't pop it together in, like, my own PowerPoint design. No, pay the money, because this is so much of your genius you're putting out there. Then invest in yourself, invest in other parts that you are not strong at, to get it to this professional level where it looks like, oh yeah, this looks like a book that Simon and Schuster would publish, or HarperCollins would publish. So yeah, but that's the that comes into the book publishing side of things, right? Don't get your cousin to do it. Just because they know, like, oh, you dabble on design on the side, you can design my book cover.
And what was your process to coming up with the title of the book? Because I've seen that your title is very direct, right? Anyone who is looking on Amazon, they know that, and if they are looking for a presentation book, they know that this book is for me. Including the subtitle, like transform your presentations skills from boring to badass, like it's direct, right? So how did you do it? Like, what was your process of creating the title and the subtitle of the book?
So part of it too is, I'm a little direct, maybe not, I've become a lot better, but something like, you have to think in terms of what people are looking for. So I was very intentional with my title, because I'm also thinking about what would people look for on the internet, right? If they're looking for answers, so many people put in the search bar, how to, right? How to do this, how to do that. Because just look through your Google history. Like, how do I do this? So I was intentional, because if I want people to buy my book and they go, well, how do I do presentations, right? But I also wanted to do a patent interrupt, because when you say how to not suck, like, oh, that suck is a big word up there. And
Yeah.
it might actually offend some people, and it's okay if it offends you, then it's not for you. and I'm okay with that, right? It's like, but if you think you can go, oh God, I suck at presentations, I don't want to suck, then I want to know, right? Because I want to go from boring to badass. I want to be a badass. You don't be a jackass. How do I make sure that the title also, like, grabs people's attention, right? So again, I sort of made suck quite big, and as you can see, I would never know why I'm pointing, right? So people go, oh, you know, so it's either like it got attention and it made people stop because they're gonna look, but then they'll read the title and go, yeah, I want to know how to not suck at that, right? So always look for things that like, what are people searching for? But I think that also has to be clarity in your title. Sometimes, you know, being clever doesn't get the message across. You have to like be clear about what they're going to get from this book. So if you look at the title of my book, it's very clear. It's a book about presentation skills, how to not suck at it. You go from boring to bad. There you go. So look at, so here's a tip. If you are looking at how to title your books, look at top sellers in nonfiction. Right, one of my favorite books, and also my brain coach is Jim Quick. He wrote the book Limitless. You know, expand your mind, and you know he just came out with the second edition, Limitless Expanded. And you know, if you look at the title and then you look at the subtitle, you know, did it make you want to pick up the book and read? So what are the things that you read? Look at all the titles and see how did they craft that, so I can show some form of change. Right, again, some form of transformation in the title. Right? I mean, use the damn word transform, right? But it's like, how can you go from A to Z, right? How do you go from zero to hero in like 3 seconds or whatever that may be? So, you know, something that will keep the audience wanting to know more. Then they go, I want to read this book.
Yeah, same here. Like from my book title as well, it starts with how to, and the title is How to Write a Bestseller, right? And of course, we have a subtitle where I think it covers 9 steps to write, publish, market the book, and then make profit out of it, something like that. So it's a one thing to write a book and then publish it and make it available to the world, and it's another thing to use the book to grow your brand, get more clients. You have built the entire business by having this book as a foundation. What are the 3 or 4 things that you did to use the book to build your reputation, establish your authority in the market, and then also using the book to getting more clients for your courses and coaching program?
So it's a several prong approach, but one easy thing that you should always include in your book is to make sure that you have a means to give your readers something so they can download something where you can capture their emails. One, always important, right? Whether you put a QR code or something in there. I'm going to be redoing the book like second edition, where I'm going to be adding more value in there. So this way I can have a means to capture, because when you send your book up into Amazon and people buy it, you don't know who buys your book. You can't get the emails. So how can you create a way for people to still opt into your words? Like, hey, do you want to know the free video training in this book? Scan this QR code and it will take them to your site to get, so you can get their emails and then nurture that relationship, right? So, you know, not only do you get the book, you get a little extra if you go to this site. Right. So I have at the end of every chapter, I have, hey, if you want to get the prompts down here, you know, just go and email, drop your email here, and then you can, you know, get all of these like a workbook. So you can do all those sort of things, right? So you want to make sure you can get people's emails. So that's just within the book itself. And here's the thing, you have to kind of, I like to say, like, I'm the queen of shameless self-promotion. You're going to tell people about your book, right? And share certain things of value from your book. So I lean heavily on social media, even in my personal platform. But because I was writing a how-to book, I really leverage my platform on LinkedIn to send to make sure that I can give things of value. So, you know, just be little tips like, hey, do you struggle with this? Let me tell you 3 things you can do really easily. And then it's like, you know what? If you want to know more, you can pick up my book. But you can also make that in your profile, right? I put best-selling author because I managed to reach that status on Amazon. So best-selling author of How to Not Suck at Presentations, you know, helping entrepreneurs and professionals create memorable presentations that stick, or whatever your profile is, so people can see it. So when they hover over your name and go, oh, who is Fern Chan? Oh, she's an author. Oh, and she helps people with this. So, but you have to give value that lends yourself to, like, hey, what did I write in my book? Maybe you can read a little passage, or, you know what, I taught this in my book, and I'm going to show you how I did this. So you give a little bit of value. So this way they can see how, you know, 1, they can read from, and 2, you build more authority, right? And don't be afraid to share your tips. Don't be afraid to give things away. And I think people have this fear of like, oh, well, then if I give all my tips away, you know what? They're not going to buy the course. So here's the thing. Not everybody's on the platform every day watching your stuff. We put it out every day, so it feels like that, right?
Yeah.
However, you get new followers all the time. They might not know you, but you keep getting that value, right? Hey, listen, let me show you. I found this really cool thing. So one of the things I did was like, I found this really cool hack where you can do this on PowerPoint. Let me show you. So I just did like a screen record. And then it was like, oh, that was pretty cool. Guess what? You now have another digital asset that you can use in your library that you can then recycle out there a few months down the line. Because people have like short-term memories. They don't remember. So it's okay for you to recycle content. Don't drive yourself crazy, right? And put it out there. But again, always tell people like, hey, this is what I can do for you, right? Did you find this valuable? Drop a thumbs up or something, and then you get more engagement that way. You don't always have to push for a sale, right? Build your authority, show how much value you give to people. And then when you have a promotion or when you're running your next course or your next launch, then you have people who are like, oh, I keep following her because she always shows me how to do certain things. And when I say, hey, listen, my enrollment is up for my next cohort. If you're ready to become a powerhouse presenter, come join me. Right? Because then it's like, it's open, it's there for you. You don't have to take it. But if you've gotten value and you know, work with me more, you have this opportunity. And then you have to keep giving more value, you know, as you go throughout. But again, right? Why did you write the book in the first place? So much of it is sharing your knowledge. So share your knowledge. Don't be afraid of people taking it. It's like, that's like the biggest form of flattery. Even better. Borrow somebody else's, go, you know what? I really like the way he did, and then put your spin on it. That's what people do on Instagram, right? They remix people's reels by saying, see, this is what he said, and I agree. Right? And they get like a gazillion.
I was watching an interview of Ramit Sethi, like who's an author of I'll Teach You How to Be Rich. He's a multi-million-dollar. He's built this business like in the back end of the book. Yeah. And someone asked, like, why do you share all of these stuff for free on YouTube and all the different podcasts? And he told the person that I share more than 90% of the stuff that is in the course for free on YouTube and podcast. I don't care, like, if someone will, like, not everyone is going to go through the entire like YouTube videos and all the blogs that I've written. Is you have to position yourself in such a way that if the person is offering this much of value completely for free, then what kind of value I'll get when I'll enroll in the course or the coaching program? This is the way, like, you have to establish your brand.
Exactly.
So
yeah. Think of it as like when you're being generous, your return on investment will be a lot more, right? But if you're stingy about giving away stuff, then you're going to get kind of stingy people. So when you give away more, you get people who are willing to pay more. So.
Right, sure. Do you have any numbers, like how many leads you are generating from the book, from the lead magnet on the monthly basis?
I'm so bad at tracking my own analytics, and I'll be very like, what I can say is I have a healthy return on the royalties. So every month I have a royalty check from Amazon. So thank you. But in terms of like the prompt, not so much. But you know what? I have to. It's because it's my bad, right? I'm not checking the tracking as well as I should, because I'm so busy doing all the other things in my business. That part has fallen down the whole. But I know, right? Because when people sign up, I have a very specific link, so that I know, like, oh, this person bought the book because it has this tag at the end. So then I know, it's like, then I know for sure that this was from a book sale and not from anywhere else, versus like somebody who joined my webinar, who joined me later, or they, came into my world by taking my quiz or whatever it is. They, there's certain tags. But yeah, a bit slack on falling out. Like so many of the people that you have, right? When you're a solopreneur, authorpreneur, mompreneur, all those sort of things, you're wearing like a gazillion hats. But I'm very thankful and blessed that other parts of my engine work well, that I haven't had time to look at the analytics. But if I pay a bit more attention, I'm sure I'd be able to hone those other parts in, right?
You also do keynote speaking, right?
I I do when I get asked. So yeah, I've been very blessed that I've spoken at the U.S. Navy. It was like, oh boy, so many levels of clearance. I can't even like. It takes like 6 months. It's like, okay, it's like their base where I was talking about mental health issues, because that's something else that I taught. So they said, you know what, we'd love for you to speak. And then once at the UN, it was talking again about like, how do you deal with these sort of situations when you might have protesters or other things. So it's not so much. So yes, I teach on presentation, but because I'm known in other areas of my expertise, I use my presentation skills to make sure that what I present in those sort of arenas matches the audience. They get some value out of it, and they are actually engaged listeners, and also they feel like, oh wow, that's, we got to have her back. Because that's the ultimate goal, right? If you want to do that sort of keynote speaking. And sometimes it's more like, I've been asked to go and do some training at certain areas. Like, there are certain services that say, you know what, we need people who need the skill set. Can you come and do training and do this sort of very specific workforce development? We have to learn a skill set. I said, absolutely. So let me show you what I can do. So again, anything that's in that sort of wheelhouse of communication, how do we de-escalate? How do we communicate in crisis? How do we do customer service? How do we do all those things? Easy for me, right? It's like, if I can teach cops how to do this, I can teach the person at the front desk who has to deal with a mean customer, how to help them to then let them have a still white glove experience at the end and remain professional. So yeah, it's one avenue that can also highlight many other things within my skill set.
And what do you think, which machine in the entire engine is generating most of the revenue for you? Like, is it book sales or video courses, coaching program, training, or the speaking engagements that you're doing?
Well, the speaking engagements, depending, I mean, they're definitely a more high cost, so I don't have to do that many to get a really high return. So that's nice. But they're if you want something a bit more predictable where you can have it automated, then I would say it's my group coaching program, because that's also the one where it's somewhat higher ticket, where if I can get a cohort together, then that's something that runs, right? So the same amount of effort it takes to sell a $10 product, it's the same as how you want to sell a $10,000 product, right? So I'd rather sell a higher ticket item than have to put in all of that effort, but I have all the other things in there should they not, should they have an option to come in at a lower level. So I focus more on that, my coaching program, because that helps more people. It gets accountability. And that one is also time, right? For me, it's like, if I run this every quarter, because it's like 6 weeks, so I can run it in January. And after that, run the next session, then the next session, then I have a time cycle to get people in through the door that way. So this way you can then also schedule out how you want to promote your courses, how you want to do that. And at the end of each cohort, you get testimonials. So you get people can speak about how the program worked for you. Then you use that as your next round of, marketing, right? So you have to be quite intentional and also figure out a way to make it sort of serve the all the other areas. So you can promote every part of the thing that's part of your ecosystem. Like I said, you have a book, you have a course, maybe you have a coaching program, maybe it's a high ticket, maybe whatever it is that you offer, but make it so that it's part of your ecosystem that one can feed into the other, and you don't want to have to duplicate efforts, right? So what can you do one time, chop it up, and then send out as a way to get people to know you, know, like, and trust you, right? As an authority in this figure. But what I also do too is sometimes not always about the book. I share people about the journey. Like, what is it like to be a mompreneur? What is it like to do the things that I do, but still keep myself sane? And sometimes it's not the pretty stuff, right? The God, I'm at the gym. I'm kind of like, don't want to do it, but I'm here because if I don't keep myself healthy, then I can't run my business. So, I share those behind the scenes, the ugly, no makeup, no, those ones get the most views. The mess. I was like, oh, because people can relate to that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Also going to be like somebody who's an aspiring mompreneur who has an idea, who would like to do that. They can go, oh, she has to struggle with getting the kids out of bed and ready for school and all of these things, and PTA meetings, and and still run a business. If she can do it, I can do it. So that's the other thing that you can do too, in terms of like, how do you sort of share content? It doesn't always have to be about the book, but it can also go to you as a person. What do you value? What do you stand for? Because don't forget, people also buy from you because they like you, right? They can trust you, or they can say, I can relate to that. People can look at me and go, you know what? There's so few, I wouldn't say, okay, loud, loud, outspoken Asian women out there who can speak on these sort of things because, for better or worse, and I don't believe this to be true, but yes, I know there is this perception that a lot of Asians are more on the quiet side. They're not loud, right? They're a little bit behind the scenes, and but if you don't put yourself out there where somebody can see themselves in you, then you never know who can go, I want to be just like that. Right. So that's, another thing for you to think about, like, especially if you're going onto this journey as an entrepreneur or an authorpreneur, it seems to be where I started out as, right? So as an authorpreneur, then it's sort of like, oh, I'm not just the one thing, right? I'm a mompreneur because I'm a mom, and I love the fact that I can use this business model. I can also show my children what it means to be an entrepreneur, so they can be kidpreneurs. They can, see, oh, that's how mom makes her money now, and then I pull them in to be a part of my business, and then it's like, hey, I get my kids to do videos with me, and it's like, oh, this is content, post it on YouTube, post it, so they get to be a part of the process, and then it becomes more fun, right? People like to see fun things. They don't always see the dull, drab stuff, but they also like to see the hot messes. We're not always perfect,
right? And I'm curious, like how many members or how many people you take in one group or one cohort in your coaching program?
So I keep it small because, again, for me, if I want to work with you and I'm intentional about you being able to do the work, my cohort is a max 10 people, 10, right? Because then it's like, it's a small group. I'll be able to coach you within these 6 weeks, so you get maximum effort and time with me in this sort of environment. So it's concentrated right now. If I have more requests, I might open more cohorts. But again, it's more like, let me see what I can work with you first. So this way, it's like you feel good about what you got out of it. Because like, I'm asking you to trust me. I want you to get your return on investment too.
Yeah, sure. And how do you promote it? So for an example, do you announce it 1 or 2 months in advance, and then you start getting members, and then you start the cohort on that specific day? And then you also like have this sort of maybe countdown that, okay, 7 members are in, now just 3 members left or 2 members left. Do you also do this?
Yeah.
Like, tell me the entire process.
I do. So I just ran a Black Friday sale. So it was like, hey, this is for you to, learn the process of how do you create, turn your ideas to income, right? So I ran a Black Friday sale. There was a ticking clock. I gave them, bonuses, but you have to have follow-up systems. So this is another part of the business where, you really need to have a CRM, like a customer or an email responder, an automation system that you can then send out emails automatically. And this is why it's important for you to get people's emails, right? So when people sign up and they sign up for my leads in the book, I can email them. I've nurtured them, say, hey, thank you for getting my book. Guess what? That's an opportunity for you to join my coaching program. And you can get all of this good stuff on Black Friday, because we all like sales, for this amazing price, right? Don't miss out. Put in a bit of that FOMO. So it's intentional, but you also have to, don't do the one email and be done. No, you have to sort of think about what are the follow-ups I can do, because I don't know about you, but are you more of that last minute person when you see the ticket was like, oh, I need to get that? That's what you do. I mean, I got the most sales on that second to last email because the clock was ticking down, right? When I first sent it out, people like, oh, I got some time. Oh, they get distracted. So it's like, you have to sort of think about that. You do need an email marketing strategy. I will say that. So it's not just, you keep nurturing your clients, right? So once they come into your world, the intent is the highest at that point, because they bothered to put in their email to get what you were giving them, or they bothered to open up their credit card and paid for something. That means they have high intent. At that moment, this is when you have to engage with them. This is when you email them and say, hey, thank you for being a part of my world. And then you set up expectations. Once a week, I'll be sending out tips and all of this, or, and there will be some promotions once in a while. But you can opt out of that, but you have to constantly also nurture and not market to them, but nurture them, right? So that when you do have a promotion, it's like, hey, I'm running this if you're interested down here. But sometimes people have to hear things differently and it hits them differently. So I would always say, like, that always treat your emails as gold. These are people who've bought into your world. So treat them like royalty so you can constantly nurture them, give them the leads. And then what you write in your emails too, you can spin that out as content on the different platforms, right? How can this email be posted on LinkedIn as a little article? Because sometimes what I do, like, I don't want to duplicate efforts. And I have people who are on LinkedIn who follow me, but they're not necessarily on my list. So how can I still share that same content? And I always use storytelling as a tactic because that's one of the things I believe in. So how do I wrap the lesson in a story? And it could be the most mundane thing, right? It's like, oh my God, you know what? I forgot to click the button on my rice cooker. And then I just had to eat like the meal without my rice. And, oh my God, as a Chinese person, that would be like the worst possible thing to like forget to turn on the damn button on the rice cooker. But then it's like, I only had half my meal. And so I sort of tied that into the stories. Like, when you don't have all your components, it's like having your courses, but not an offer, right? So it's like you have it, but you don't have a means to sell it. It's not complete. It's like having your curry chicken without the rice. It's like, I can still eat it, or vice versa. It's just not the same, right? So it's, how do I wrap the lesson into also the promotion or the thing that I'm trying to sell? And so that's what I like to do. Everything that I send out, always like, I use the storytelling technique. That's what I tell them when you do presentations, right? How do you tell a little story that gets them the hook that makes them want to listen, right? So it's like, oh, did you do this? Like, how many of you like probably ate too much during Thanksgiving and then and then felt sick the next day and just slept for like 16 hours, So what's the lesson in that, and how do I teach that as part of a presentation thing, right? So that's some other tips that I like to do too. But yes, email nurturing, very important. So make sure you do that. Have a follow-up system. And don't worry about like emailing too much. And I think that's the thing, right? If you're constantly giving value, then people don't mind reading. And also share a bit about yourself in every email. I pull pictures up from when I was in school saying, you know what, back in the day when I used to play in a band, and it's a picture of me playing in the band, but this prepared me to go on stage. And this prepared me to overcome nerves. So what is the lesson that I'm pulling out? And then people write back in my emails going, oh my God, I used to play this instrument. I'm like, oh, which is great engagement, right? It's maybe not about the lesson itself, but it's like when they respond back, it's like, this person read my email. So I think that's also a good way for you to sort of, make sure that you keep your readers engaged with you, especially if you're an author. You wrote a book. Make sure you keep writing.
So you also promote like this program, like idea to income. Do you think in today's economy, is it easy or is it difficult to write a book and then use it as to build a 6, 7, 8-figure business? Like, how difficult do you think it is? And if it is easy, like, what do you think would be the actionable 5 or 6 steps, to make it happen?
I think it is possible. I think the key thing is also like intention and consistency, right, over time, but also not being afraid to fail. There are some times where I launch and it's like crickets. It's like, oh God, one person showed up for the webinar, and it's okay. We all have this journey and we have to learn, right? So we can't quit at the first sign of like no shows. It's part of experience. It's like failing forward is okay. Like, what can I learn from this? Even if nobody shows up, just do the webinar anyway, record it so you feel what it's like to still present it, right? So I that's one of the things I do. So I do a lot of free webinars. Hey, and at the end, it's like, if you're interested in working with me more, you can join me for this. So I use webinars as a lead magnet too. So it's like, hey, you can join my masterclass for free. And then at the end, I work on giving them value. And then here's an opportunity for you to work for me if you'd like to. It would be such an honor to serve you. So it's not a hard push, but I've sort of coaxed them along the journey. So at the end of it, they go, oh, so how many of us have done that too? How many of us have like listened to a webinar and go, oh my God, I need this in my life. Bye. Right? Because you've already helped them overcome some of the objections, but you can see like, God, if I can do this, then I know that I can reach that. So I think you can do it, but you have to be intentional, but also you have to be okay with some failures. Like I said, the first couple of launches I did on my webinars, oh my God, did not make any sales. And it was like, ugh, nobody bought. And I was like, okay, well, what can I learn from this, right? I need to
Mm.
maybe fine tune my pitch a little bit. Maybe it was a bit rocky. Maybe I didn't give enough back. So again, right? When you're on this journey, you have to have some grace for yourself, but also be okay to fail. What's the flop? What is the lesson in this flop? So that's where the nuggets come from. And then fine tune it, and then say, hey, the next time it's like, oh, I got this. It's so now it's at the point where it's like I have like 40% of people show up to webinars, which is pretty high.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
people
yeah.
sign up, it's like, look, usually, people don't show up. It's because, I have those automated emails to remind people to show up, to give them the nudge and all of that. And then, you give them reasons to stay for your webinar. And then, you do follow-ups at the end. So there's many things to make this work. If you wanted to get there, is, are you willing to put in the work, and are you willing to be consistent and have a plan? Because it's one thing to write the book, but what are you going to do with it, right? If you want to launch it into those other things, then you have to have intention in how you're going to do it, and what are the little steps that you're going to do, and it's sort of like building that muscle every time to do it. So yes, it takes a while, and I struggle with some of that to myself. It's like sometimes it's like, oh, the kids get sick. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
have to take that. I can't focus on this, and so sales did not go as much as it. But you know what it is? It's part of life, right? And I can't imagine going back to my 9 to 5, so it just has to work. Yeah.
What do you think how your book has impacted your personal and professional life? Like if you compare your life before your book and then after the book, what has changed?
I think just a sense of accomplishment for yourself, right? So many people, how many people can say I wrote a book? Not that many. So for
Mm.
me, I think, and also I hearken this a little back to my dad. He was a newspaper editor. So writing was in his blood. And I think that writing was in my blood too. Although he red penned me to death back in the day when I was in school, I would read my reports, and he would get out his red pen and like slash everything down. But it was like an homage to my dad. Like, Dad, I wrote a book. And thank you for editing when I was back at school, right? So for me, one part of it was that legacy again, right? Being able to say, "Hey, I wrote a book," and now my kids know, "Oh, mommy wrote a book." But also the other thing too is just bragging rights. Bragging rights to say I'm a published author. I did it, a bucket list item in a way. But then other opportunities can pop up, right? So I wrote one book. I might write another book. I might write a children's book. I might write another series on how to not suck at something else. So how to not suck at starting a business. I mean, oh gosh, there's so much to learn from the lessons of the one thing. How can I then apply this to other parts of my life?
Love it. And what suggestions do you have for aspiring writers who are still struggling to write their book?
Keep at it. I know this is like but what is, sometimes it's hard to see the end of the line, right? So just think about the value that you want to share with the world, and also believe that someone out there can relate to your message, right? There's so many people out there, so don't think that there's an overwhelming number of people writing on this thing. But guess what? You're writing it from your perspective, your unique experiences. What makes you you is your special sauce that somebody can relate to, right? So somebody can read it and go, oh, that's me. Oh, I can. So don't think that you won't reach anybody, because I really do believe that you will touch somebody with what you have to with your shared experience and all those sort of things that you have. And that's what people love, right? To sort of hear from other people who are experiencing the same struggles as they are, and they just can't articulate it themselves. And you have a way to do it. And if you're struggling, just take it one step at a time. Maybe it's just, what, today I'm just going to write one sentence. And then if that wasn't too hard, then 2 sentences. And before you know it, it's like 3, 4. And then just, also try to keep an end date. So it's not so open, because sometimes if we sort of let ourselves sort of dream on, we won't do anything. So give yourself a time frame. It's like, what? By December 31st, I at least want to get like my outline done. or at least write 2 chapters or 1 chapter. So you push yourself a little bit to get that little bit done, because a little by little, adds up to a lot. So you can do it, but just stay focused, and give yourself little targets so that you can get there at the end.
You know what, Fun? It was really fun chatting with you. So you are really good with communication, by the way. And the way you speak, the way you deliver your message, you sound very authentic. And of course, so if you are the author of How to Not Suck at Presentations, like, you are the legitimate author. So where people can find you and about your book and about your coaching program and the courses.
Wonderful. So as you can see from my wonderful background here, fernchan.com, be the presenter everyone remembers. You can get a copy of my book, learn more about the programs that I offer. And also I run quite a few free masterclasses and webinars as well. So join me there. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am at Fern Chan, or at Instagram at Fern Chan Presents, or find me on Facebook, Fern Chan Author. And I would love to connect with you and tell me what your next presentation is. Maybe I can help you out in what you want to do. Or if you have any other questions that you'd like to know about how to not suck at presenting, happy to help.
Awesome. Love it. So go check out how not to suck at presentations on Amazon, and also check out fernchan.com. And thank you so much for joining in today.
Oh, what a pleasure. Thank you so much, Vikrant, for having me. Have me back on again. I'll be back.
So